Well, hello, we're here in John's Gospel, chapter 19. We're now moving into, continuing with all the events around the trial, trial in inverted commas. So we'll do the first 7 verses of chapter 19. So let's read them, reading from the ESV. Then Pilate took Jesus and flogged him, and the soldiers twisted together a crown of thorns and put it on his head, and arrayed him in a purple robe. They came up to him, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews!" and struck him with their hands. Pilate went out again and said to them, "See, I'm bringing out to you that you may know that I find no guilt in him." So Jesus came out wearing the crown of thorns and a purple robe. Pilate said to them, "Behold the man!" When the chief priests and the officers saw him, they cried out, "Crucify him! Crucify him!" Pilate said to them, "Take him yourself and crucify him, for I find no guilt in him." The Jews answered, "We have a law. According to that law, he ought to die because he has made himself the Son of God." So, one thing that obviously we have in total four different accounts of the events around the crucifixion, the trial, the crucifixion, and the resurrection. And it's possible there's more than one flogging of Jesus. Now this one here, now remember that Pilate wants Jesus, he knows that Jesus is innocent, that they're just trumped up charges that the Jews are bringing here. And they have various degrees of floggings. Started from the relatively mild flogging, relative being the key word there. Don't imagine there's anything such as a pleasant flogging. And this one here is probably of the mild variety. And what Pilate is seeking to do is to humiliate Jesus. He knows that the Jewish religious leaders are just causing trouble. And he has no time for them. And he knows that Christ is innocent. And just look, this man, he's no threat. And the Roman authorities, we're not afraid of him. So he's humiliating Jesus here. Now remember, he thinks he's innocent. Or he knows that he's innocent. Hasn't done anything wrong. And he still hasn't flogged. Times were different in those days. Rather different, very much different than they are now. So he has him flogged. And then the soldiers do other actions, that they put the crown of thorns upon his head and put a purple robe on him. This is to make him look ridiculous. I said, how can this man possibly be the king of the Jews? What sort of threat can this man be? It's almost certainly not the severe flogging. Now, later on, there may well have been a second flogging which would have been of a much more severe type. But at this point, it wasn't, because the next bit, which we'll do in the next video, Jesus has quite an intelligent conversation with Pilate, which he would, if it had been a severe flogging, may well not have been in any fit state to carry out. And then they mocked Jesus, "Hail, King of the Jews," and struck him with their hands. Again, they're just humiliating Jesus. And Pilate is perfectly happy to do this, because all he wants is a quiet life as governor of Judea. Or Jerusalem, there's all sorts of details on what the regions were called. But anyway, he wanted a quiet life. And says, "I'm bringing him out that you may know I find no guilt in him." So he came out. Jesus came out wearing this crown of thorns and a purple robe. And Jesus says, "Behold the man." He's saying this in a mocking way. He said, "What is there to be scared of here? What is there to fear?" But then nobody, it says, the chief priests and the officers saw him and said, "Crucify him, crucify him." Often people say that, Jesus came on a donkey on Palm Sunday and the crowds are applauding him. And then you say, well, the same crowds were later crying out, "Crucify him." Well, they probably weren't the same crowds. Probably different crowds. We're going to say, as it here, the chief priests and the officers saw him. But the Jewish religious leadership and those lackeys with them were the ones who cried out, "Crucify him." And Pilate says, "Take him yourself, crucify him, I find no guilt in him." Now he knows full well that the Jews cannot crucify him. They didn't have the authority to do that because of the Roman occupation. And anyway, they would have stoned him to death, would have been the sort of chosen method of execution. And the Jews know they can't crucify him, but they also know they are dead set on having Jesus killed. So they say, "He's made himself the Son of God." And that's why they wanted him crucified. Because he was claiming to be equal with God. Again, I've said this before, but I'll say it again. There are those who try and say, "Oh, it's much later that the church made up that Jesus was the Son of God, that Jesus was God." It's absolute nonsense. It's because he claimed to be the Son of God that had him crucified. And anyway, in the next one, we'll see what Pilate's reaction to all this was.